Hey guys, today I wanted to cover one of the, in my opinion, better surprise Pokemon of Pokemon Sword and Shield. I'm going to go over his Pokedex entries, where to find him, and also builds and guides on how to use him. If you want to get Copperajah, he shows up in several locations. So number one, he does have a Gigantamax, so he is going to show up on the rare table of steel type dens. He also shows up right next to the entrance as a rare spawn, right outside of him. He also shows up here with cold weather. If you went to farm his preform, that one's actually pretty easy to find too. Preform will show up right near the Pokemon breeder in about half of weather conditions. So he's another one that's pretty easy to find. You shouldn't have a hard time. And this is Copperajah's Gigantamax form. He doesn't have any specific weight, but you can tell that he is giant. Just look at that. He honestly kind of looks like a Womp from Mario. He looks kind of derpy, but I personally like him. So one thing to note about this Pokemon is he is the second heaviest Pokemon, by quite a bit too. So if you think of, one of the previous more heavy Pokemon, Snorlax, Snorlax weighs about 1,000 pounds. Copperajah weighs 1,433 pounds. That is going to be something that's relevant when we look at his sets. He's going to be heavier than almost every Pokemon in the game except Eternatus. So let's get down to the build itself. So I do have the Gigantamax version of Copperajah. I would say it's not necessary, but it is a nice option to go into. The Gigantamax version, I'll show you guys what he looks like in battle, but he will put out spikes with his steel type move. So if you have him leading your party, it might be a good idea to try to get the Gigantamax. So I run Copperajah with Life Orb, and I also run him his normal ability, Sheer Force. One thing about Sheer Force that's pretty cool is if Sheer Force would activate on a skill or a move, it will not have the effects of the Life Orb. So what Life Orb does is it gives a move 30% more power at the cost of 10% of your Pokemon's HP. And then Sheer Force, if there's an additional effect on a move that's a positive effect, that will also go up by 30% more. So with Sheer Force, you're stacking 30% with Life Orb, and then another 30% with Sheer Force on applicable moves, but you're not taking the 10% damage from Life Orb, which is really cool in my opinion. It gives this guy a lot of tankiness and also lets him put out a lot of damage. So let's move on to EVs. I have a perfect Copperajah. I got him to level of 100, and he had 4 perfect IVs because he was caught in a 5-star raid. I hyper trained the other 2 just because I knew that I was going to use him in my team. So this is what he looks like with perfect IV. And then I trained special attack and HP all the way up. I still have like 4 points to put in another stat. I don't really think that's going to make much difference. It is going to go in attack whenever it's done, but I mean those 4 points out of 500, they're not going to make much difference once you get 2 max stats. So with EVs, you know that you've trained a stat the highest that it can go whenever they sparkle like that. So I have Copperajah with a mild nature. I don't necessarily like it too much. I would prefer special attack up and speed down, just because you definitely know that speed is going to be your lowest stat. Can't be too picky with Gigantamax. They're a very rare spawn to begin with. And then on top of that, it's a one-shot deal. There's not really a way to farm these with any reliability in a way that doesn't take a whole bunch of time. So I probably will get a mint to change that. But right now it's something that I kind of just have to deal with. And I don't see too much drawback on missing the 10% defense right now. I definitely would like it back though. And here are Copperajah's baseline stats. They stay the same between base and Gigantamax, so not a lot changes there. His HP and his attack are by far the highest stats. Okay special attack, then kind of mediocre defense, special defense, and then really low speed. You're gonna kind of just understand using him that he's gonna go last, and you'll just expect that. Out of his two abilities, Sheer Force is really good. Heavy Metal, he's already the second heaviest Pokemon in the Pokedex. I don't really think he needs to be any heavier. Any move where you're going to do damage based on the difference between you and the other Pokemon's weight, you're pretty much already going to get the max effect. I don't really think Heavy Metal is worth the ability slot. Also with Sheer Force, the thing that's really great about Sheer Force is if Sheer Force activates on a move, you can use Life Orb without taking the 10% HP loss. Let's go into a deeper dive on both of those. So Life Orb is a held item that you will get 30% more damage on a move at the cost of 10% of your max health. Sheer Force gives 30% more damage on a move with an additional positive effect. I am honestly not sure why it removes the 10% life drain on Life Orb, but I am definitely not going to complain about it. With these two together, any move where Sheer Force activates, you're getting a 60% bonus, basically just for free. So I've had pretty good success running Copperajah as a mixed attacker. Just because special attack and attack with how I've set everything up, pretty much I have a very similar stat in both of those. I'm currently running 3 moves that are affected by Sheer Force, and 1 move that isn't, that will cost 10% health if I use it. But whenever I get down to it, I'll tell you why I have that. So what I'm running right now is Earth Power, Flash Cannon, Rock Slide, and Heat Crash. I did consider putting in, instead of Heat Crash, Zen Headbutt as a psychic move to deal with fighting types that I'm weak against. Sheer Force will remove the flinch from it, and then all of my moves would have been affected by Sheer Force. I just don't really like Zen Headbutt because it's only 90% accurate, and it can lose you matches if you miss the attack. It won't happen too often. I just don't feel like it gives enough benefit to take Heat Crash out. I also considered putting Play Rough on Copperajah, and that's one of Copperajah's innate attacks. I haven't seen enough dragon types to really justify putting Fairy in, but if it's something that I started to see pretty often, I would swap it out. So let's go over the moves and where you get them. So Earth Power is a special attack, 90 power. Keep in mind it doesn't lower the target's special defense stat. This you get from TR 67. Flash Cannon, this is his stab attack. 80 plus 50% stab plus 60% from your sheer force and item. This is technical record 70. Rock Slide, 75% power, 90% accuracy, so you might miss with it. This is from a TM that you get on Route 9, TM22 if you're looking for it. Heat Crash, you get from technical record 88. This is really cool because it's based on your weight, and you're the second heaviest Pokemon in the game, so you're pretty much going to do max damage against it. I feel like Fire on Copperajah really helps a lot. It doesn't necessarily go against any of the weaknesses that you have well, but keep in mind if there's like, grass knot, grass types, they're going to do a lot of damage to you because you're really heavy, and you can kind of counter that with Heat Crash. And if you run Gmax Copperajah, or if you Dynamax Copperajah, you should lead with Flash Cannon. So Flash Cannon on the Gmax turns into Gmax Steel Surge. When it's used, it will set spikes on the battleground, which is pretty cool because Copperajah has very specific weaknesses, and people might want to take advantage of that. So they would have to swap in a Pokemon in order to do good damage to it. And if they swap in, they'll take damage from spikes. After that, the second priority is Max Rockfall. When you use Max Rockfall off of Rock Slide, it will set Sandstorm, so you will get the chip damage from Sandstorm if the opponent isn't resistant to it. And if you set up Sandstorm, they have to choose either I will take damage from Sandstorm, or I will swap out to a Pokemon that doesn't take damage from Sandstorm, but then I'll get hit by spikes. So he kind of locks in people with Gigantamax, and I like that. He gets a lot of good damage off and chip damage too. From Earth Power, Max Quake, it's okay. It's good to use if somebody's weak against ground. It has a chance to bring your special defense up too, so it does help with bulk a little bit. I would not use the fire move just because there's not a lot of reason. You have 3 really good options. All of the additional effects really help. One thing to note that when you Gigantamax, none of these will have sheer force activate, so you will take the 10% damage from using these abilities. Also keep in mind, just kind of as a general rule of thumb, so Heat Crash will turn into Dynamax move, but if you use Heat Crash on a Dynamax Pokemon, they don't have a weight, so that move will fail. So don't accidentally use that move and then waste a turn. So let's take a look at him in the Battle Tower. This is not my team that I use. I'm kind of trying to figure out what I want to do. There's a lot of good Gmax Pokemon. I do like Copperajah as the one I use the most, but I have thought about a Trick Room build with Hatterena that I could use as well. So I'm going to open with Gmax Steel Surge just because I want to set up those spikes. I want those other 2 Pokemon to take chip damage. I could do Max Quake, but I think my setup is probably the best idea, and I'm only losing about 50% damage because I'm getting stab with the Steel Strike. I'm not getting stabbed with the other move. I love him. He looks like a thwomp. Yeah, so even with Flamethrower, with my Gmax, I'm taking about a 5th of my life in damage. And I would have one-shot them all while, if it didn't have Focus Sash. Yeah, and see, you do lose the HP whenever you're Gigantamaxed. I'm going to use Max Rockfall. I want to set up the Sandstorm next. Yeah, so 2 super effective hits, and I'm not even at half health. Blue Steelix, another Steel type. I am going to use Max Quake. I'm hoping that I'll get the special defense off of it. Plus it's super effective. Okay, and I'm going to use Heat Crash here. Cool, and that's 3 Pokemon down in the Battle Tower with just Copperajah. This guy is not honestly a great person to go against, but you did kind of get to see the setup and how powerful this Pokemon can be. So let's check out a second battle with Copperajah. I want to get those spikes out, so I'm going to go with the Gmax move first. I might end up regretting it. Rockfall is probably the way to go. I just want that extra damage when the next Pokemon swaps in. He did about as much damage to himself as he did to me, which is kind of funny. Yeah, cool. So I would have KO'd him either way. I think it's kind of interesting just how tanky this Pokemon is and how much damage he can put out with Life Orb and Sheer Force. Rockwall is, I mean, no-brainer. Super effective, and I can change the weather to something more beneficial to me. Definitely do it. I'm only Great Ball rank in the Battle Tower. So while Copperajah is good, I wouldn't say build him the way I build him and then run into competitive and expect to do this well. I mean, in competitive, people are going to have Pokemon that are just as min-maxed as you, so you should definitely expect some trouble. I don't really even know what competitive is gonna shape up as in Sword and Shield, so this might be something that I make a video of, and you know, we have some fun with the build, and then whenever competitive comes out, there's some really, you know, overpowered tactic that people are doing that you know, you can't use him with, and you have to find a way around. I would just say don't play competitive if you're playing to just have fun. Competitive is going to be something that's very min-maxy. You need to go in knowing what you're doing, and also you're going to have to keep up with the metagame because your strategy is going to be based around what the other person is doing for the most part. And that's it for the video. If you liked what you saw, please like the video and leave a comment. It can be a question for me. I'll try to get back to it as quickly as I can. If you like the content of this channel, I'm just starting out, and I'm a huge fan of Pokemon. So I definitely appreciate if you subscribed and turned on post notifications. I definitely won't spam you too much, I promise. So it's safe to do so. And also, if you want to support the channel, I have a link to my small business down below. We sell Pokemon stuff and Funko Pops. Pokemon and just toys in general are kind of a passion of mine. So I hope you guys can see that through the videos, and I hope you consider taking a look at the website. Thank you, and goodbye.